The first warning. The galaxy was a vast, peaceful place. Different species from all over the universe lived in harmony, each ruling their corner of the stars. Most of them fought the same thing. Humanity, the people of Earth, were nothing more than a small, insignificant species. They had no real power, no significant influence. They were weak, lost in the depths of space, hidden from the galaxy's larger conflicts. But things were about to change. It all began with a faint signal. At first, it was so weak, so barely noticeable that most of the galaxy's advanced systems couldn't even detect it. It was just another background hum among the billions of signals constantly bouncing through space. To most, it seemed like a mistake, a glitch in the system, but not to everyone. On one of the most distant worlds, far from the core of the galaxy, a small group of human scientists and military officers listened carefully. The signal, though weak, carried a pattern, a message of some kind. It was strange. It didn't belong to any known species. It didn't match the usual communications of the galaxy's main powers. The humans on the listening post were puzzled. They had no idea what the signal meant, but they understood one thing. It was important. Lieutenant Sarah Torres sat at her console, scanning the strange signal. She leaned forward, her brow furrowing as she focused on the screen. The other officers in the room had dismissed it, believing it to be another faulty transmission. But Sarah had a gut feeling. Something told her this wasn't just another technical error. "Commander, you need to hear this," Sarah called, her voice urgent. Commander Alan Carter walked over to Sarah's console, looking at the signal. His expression remained calm, but Sarah could see a flicker of concern in his eyes. He was used to handling emergencies, but this was different. He had a deep sense of unease, something that wasn't easy to explain. It was the kind of feeling that crawled up your spine, making you question everything. "It's faint, but it's coming from somewhere deep in uncharted space," Carter said, analyzing the data. "And it's repeating. No natural signal does that." Sarah nodded. "It's too structured, too deliberate." Commander Carter stood up straighter, his gaze turning serious. He knew the risks of overreacting to something as small as a strange signal, but there was something about this one that didn't sit right with him. He turned to his crew. "Prepare the ship," he ordered. The small military vessel, the Artemis, was hardly a flagship, but it was fast and stealthy, designed for situations like this. Commander Carter's voice was steady as he gave the orders. The Artemis was about to take off on a mission no one had planned for. No one had expected this signal to lead them to something that could change everything. The rest of the galaxy was unaware of the events unfolding on the fringe. The galaxy's most powerful species, the Vracs, the Sarin, and the Draxians, were busy with their own political struggles. Earth's military was small compared to theirs, and the humans had always been on the outer rim of galactic politics. They hadn't been involved in any major conflicts for decades, their home planet a far-off memory to many. But in the silence of space, something was shifting. As the Artemis prepared to leave orbit, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would be unlike anything they had faced before. The signal they had picked up was not just a call for help. It was a warning of something coming, something that could affect the entire galaxy. "We need to figure out who sent this message," Sarah said quietly to Carter. "If they're in trouble, we can help. But if this is some kind of trap..." Carter nodded. He didn't need to hear the rest. He knew that if it was a trap, they were in for a fight. The entire galaxy could be at risk, and Earth could be the first to suffer. As the ship left orbit and began its journey into the unknown, the crew could only speculate about what lay ahead. The signal was getting stronger, clearer, but with each passing second, a growing sense of dread filled the air. The Artemis was no longer just responding to a distress call. It was heading into the heart of something far bigger than they could ever have imagined. Back on the central command hub, the galaxy's leaders were already dismissing the human message. "It's probably nothing," said General Kyler of the Vracs, one of the galaxy's most powerful races. "Some random signal." Nothing to worry about. The Sauron, a race of hyper-intelligent beings, agreed. We have far more important matters to deal with. Let the humans play their games. No one in the galaxy took the humans seriously. They didn't know what was coming. But the humans, with their small ship and their quiet determination, were about to discover something that would shake the entire galaxy to its core. As the Artemis continued its journey, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about the signal. It had been too quiet for too long. What if it was a warning? What if it was the first sign of something worse on the horizon? The galaxy had no idea what was about to happen. And as the Artemis moved deeper into the unknown, the truth was just beginning to reveal itself. The hidden threat. The Artemis drifted further into the uncharted sectors of space, its engines running silently as the crew prepared for what lay ahead. Inside the command deck, the tension was palpable. The crew knew something dangerous was lurking, but they couldn't pinpoint what it was. Commander Carter sat in his chair, staring at the forward screen as a map of the sector slowly updated. The signal had grown stronger, and its origin was now a pinpoint in deep space, just beyond a massive asteroid belt. "We're getting closer," Lieutenant Sarah Torres said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't like this. The closer we get to that signal, the more it feels wrong." Commander Carter didn't reply immediately. He didn't need to. He felt it too. Something wasn't right, but he had no choice but to keep going. The Artemis was the only ship in range, and they had been the ones to receive the distress signal first. The fate of whatever lay ahead rested on their shoulders. The signal itself was now unmistakable, clear, sharp, and definitely artificial. It wasn't a natural phenomenon like cosmic radiation or the occasional space anomaly. This was something that had been created with purpose. The pattern, the rhythm, it was deliberate. As the ship moved into the asteroid belt, the crew's senses were on high alert. The rock formations glowed faintly, illuminated by the distant light of a dying star. The asteroids around them were scattered haphazardly, but the Artemis was able to navigate with ease, its advanced sensors scanning the area for any signs of danger. Suddenly, a warning light flashed on the control panel. The ship had entered an area of intense electromagnetic interference. The signal was becoming distorted, but something else was happening. It was almost as if the ship itself had triggered some kind of defensive mechanism. "Wait," Sarah said, her voice filled with unease. "The interference. It's not natural. Someone's trying to block us." Carter quickly tapped his console, trying to access the ship's radar and scanning systems. The interference was strong, but the Artemis wasn't giving up easily. Still, the signal they had been following was now nearly impossible to track. It was as if something was actively trying to hide its source. "We need to get past this," Carter said, gripping the edge of his chair. "We can't turn back now." He ordered the crew to power up the ship's advanced navigation systems to break through the interference. The crew worked quickly, but they all knew the stakes. Every second they lost in this asteroid field brought them closer to danger, but it also took them further from the signal that had brought them here in the first place. Just as they were about to push through the barrier of interference, a strange, low-frequency hum filled the air. It wasn't a natural sound. It was mechanical, like the whirring of massive engines, deep in the heart of the asteroid belt. Sarah turned, eyes wide. "What the hell is that?" Carter felt a chill run down his spine. "That's not us. And it's not the signal either." The sound grew louder, more distinct, vibrating through the walls of the ship. It seemed to be coming from all around them. No, not from all around them. From ahead. The crew scrambled to their stations as Carter's mind raced. "This is bad," he muttered under his breath. "We're not alone." Then, just as quickly as the hum began, it stopped. The silence that followed was suffocating. The Artemis was no longer moving, and the crew felt the weight of their situation. They had entered a space where even their powerful ship was vulnerable. "Commander, look," shouted Ensign Juno, pointing to the forward screen. Carter's eyes widened. There, emerging from behind a large asteroid cluster, was a massive shadow. It was almost impossible to make out at first, but as the ship's sensors adjusted, the shape became clearer. It was enormous, far larger than anything they had ever seen before. And it wasn't just any ship, it was a battleship. But not like any battleship the humans had ever encountered. The craft had a sleek, angular design, unlike any known military technology. It was a darker shade of metal, almost blending in with the surrounding asteroids. Its surface was smooth, without the usual markings of a military vessel. Yet even in the stillness of space, the Artemis crew could feel the gravity of its presence. "What the hell is that?" Sarah breathed, her voice trembling. "That's not like any ship we know." Carter didn't answer right away. His mind was racing. He knew that humanity had no enemies out here in this part of space. This ship was from somewhere else, something far beyond anything the humans had ever faced. "Get us out of here now," Carter ordered. "We need tow." But before he could finish, the ship lurched forward, as if something had pulled it from behind. The Artemis was no longer in control. Its systems were being overridden by something far more powerful. The massive battleship had locked onto them. "Commander," Sarah shouted, "we're being pulled in." Carter's voice was a low growl. "No, we're not running. Not this time." The Artemis was powerless against the pull of the unknown ship. It was being drawn toward it, helpless in the face of an enemy it couldn't even understand. As the distance between them closed, the truth began to settle in. Whatever this ship was, it wasn't here by accident. And the signal, it wasn't a distress call. It was a trap. The crew of the Artemis was now caught in something far bigger than they could have ever imagined. And they had no idea who or what was waiting for them on the other side. The enormous shadow. The Artemis was now completely within the grip of the unknown battleship. Its sensors flickered uselessly, and every attempt to break free of the pull was met with a cold silence. Commander Carter stared at the control panels, trying in vain to regain control. The ship's engines had stopped responding, as if they were being overridden by an unseen force. "Commander, we've lost power," Ensign Juno cried out, panic rising in her voice. "We can't fight it." Carter's jaw tightened. This wasn't just an ordinary battle. This was something far more terrifying. Whatever this alien ship was, it wasn't just a threat. It was a message. And the message was clear. Humanity wasn't in control anymore. "Focus on keeping the crew safe," Carter said through gritted teeth, his mind racing. "If we're going down, we go down together." The crew worked in a daze, but deep down, they knew this was more than just a routine encounter. They had no idea how strong this enemy was. They had no idea what would happen next. Through the windows of the Artemis, they saw the enormous shadow of the alien battleship looming ever closer. Its shape was now undeniable, a behemoth of war, sleek and menacing, with sharp edges that seemed to pierce the fabric of space itself. It was larger than anything humanity had ever seen, larger than any fleet they had ever faced, and far beyond anything they had ever imagined. "It's not just a ship," Sarah Torres murmured. "It's a weapon. A massive weapon." Her words sent a ripple of fear through the crew. Whatever this was, it wasn't just a military vessel. It was something designed for destruction. And the Artemis, one of the most advanced human warships, was powerless against it. A voice came over the comms, but it wasn't the usual military tone they were accustomed to hearing. It was cold, emotionless, and filled with an air of superiority. It spoke in a language none of them could understand, but the tone was unmistakable. It was a warning. Carter's fingers gripped the armrests of his chair as he tried to make sense of the alien transmission. He had no idea what the words meant, but they didn't need translation. The tone was clear: surrender. The alien ship was demanding their compliance. The crew waited for further orders, but no one knew what to do. They had no way of negotiating with this enemy. They had no way of communicating with them. And their ship was powerless against this overwhelming force. "Commander," Sarah said quietly, her eyes wide with fear. What happens now? Carter stood up slowly, his gaze fixed on the alien ship. The distance between them was closing rapidly, and he knew they didn't have much time before they were completely in the grip of this enemy. "We fight," he said, his voice resolute, "but we do it on our terms." But as he spoke, the atmosphere around them seemed to change. The Artemis shook violently as the alien ship's powerful energy beams made contact. The hull of the Artemis groaned, as if it were being crushed by the weight of the alien force. But the ship held steady. It wouldn't break, not without a fight. Then, as if by magic, a sudden pulse of energy shot through the Artemis. It wasn't from their ship, and it wasn't from the alien vessel. It was something else entirely. A sudden surge of power surged through the ship's systems, restoring some control to the crew. Carter's heart skipped a beat. The interference that had been blocking their systems was suddenly lifted, and the Artemis was back online, albeit with limited control. "We're free," Juno shouted, her voice filled with disbelief. But Carter wasn't so sure. Something didn't feel right. They had regained control, but at what cost? What was it that had interfered with their systems, and why had the alien ship suddenly stopped its attack? It didn't take long for them to find out. The alien ship's massive shadow had disappeared from the view screen. In its place was a dark void, filled with a strange energy that seemed to stretch and distort the space around them. The Artemis was floating in an unknown part of the galaxy, a space where the laws of physics seemed to bend and break. The comms came alive again, but this time the message was clearer. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a demand. It was a statement. "You have entered forbidden space. Your presence will be erased." The crew froze. This wasn't just an alien ship. They had stumbled into a territory where no human should be. They had entered a place beyond known space, beyond even the borders of the galactic maps. And worse, they had been marked as intruders. A glimpse of despair. The silence was deafening as the Artemis drifted in the unknown space. The crew stared at the view screen, now displaying only a strange, swirling energy field. It was a void, a place where nothing seemed to exist but the dark, empty abyss. Nothing in their training had prepared them for this. No military doctrine, no galactic law, could explain what they were facing. This wasn't just a battle. It was something much deeper. Commander Carter paced in front of the control panels, trying to make sense of the situation. His mind raced as he weighed their options. The alien ship's message still echoed in his thoughts. "You have entered forbidden space. Your presence will be erased." Sarah Torres, sitting at the communication station, was frantically trying to get a signal. "There's no response, Commander," she said, her voice tinged with frustration. "We're completely cut off. I can't even reach Earth." Carter stopped pacing and stared at her, his face grim. "What do you mean, cut off? We have advanced communication tech. We should be able to contact command." "I don't know, sir. The comm system is malfunctioning. It's like we're in some sort of dimensional dead zone. We can't get through to anyone." Carter nodded slowly, his mind working furiously. They were completely isolated, stranded in a part of the galaxy that no one had ever encountered before. And worse yet, they had no idea how to escape. The strange energy field surrounding them flickered briefly, and for a moment, the crew thought they had found a way out. But then, the Artemis was violently jolted again, sending everyone tumbling in their seats. The ship's warning lights flashed as the hull groaned under pressure. "What was that?" shouted Juno, who had been thrown across the control room. She quickly stood up and rushed to her station. It's the alien ship," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "It's using some kind of energy pulse. I can't block it." Carter's hand clenched into a fist. They had thought they had escaped, but now they were being dragged further into the unknown. The alien ship had them cornered. "Commander," Sarah said again, her tone more urgent, "I've detected another message coming through. It's not from the alien ship, though. It's something else." "What do you mean, something else?" "I don't know. It's weak, fragmented, but it's human. I think it's a distress signal. Carter's heart skipped a beat. Where is it coming from? Sarah manipulated the controls and pulled up a map of the surrounding space. A red dot blinked on the screen. It was a distant signal, far beyond the reach of their usual communications, deep within the same forbidden space the Artemis was trapped in. The signal's coming from that area, Sarah said, pointing at the map. We have to check it out, Commander. It could be another human ship or a base. We can't be alone out here. Carter's mind raced. The idea of a distress signal from a human vessel was a sliver of hope in this dark, empty space. But was it a trap? And why had no one come to their aid? He had to decide quickly. They had no choice but to investigate. Set a course for the signal. Juno, make sure we're ready for anything. We don't know what's waiting for us out there. The Artemis slowly began to change course, moving toward the distant signal. The atmosphere on board was tense. No one spoke. They all knew the risks. The distress signal could be a trap, or worse, it could be a signal from a humanity they no longer recognized. As they approached, the strange energy field grew thicker, enveloping them in a choking darkness. The crew could feel the pressure of the void closing in around them. The Artemis seemed to groan in protest as it fought against the strange forces at play. We're getting closer, Juno said quietly. But the energy readings are off the charts. I've never seen anything like this. The crew huddled around the control panel, staring at the screen as the blinking red dot drew nearer. The closer they got, the stronger the energy pulse became. The Artemis was beginning to shake once more. Then, just as the tension reached its peak, the view screen flickered. A faint image appeared, a shape in the darkness. It was faint, indistinct, but it was there. It's a ship, Sarah exclaimed. It looks human, but it's nothing like anything we've ever seen before. Carter squinted at the image. The ship was massive, far larger than the Artemis itself. Its design was unlike any human vessel, but there were still some familiar elements. It had human-like features, but it was ancient, weathered, and covered in strange markings that no one could understand. A chill ran down Carter's spine. The distress signal was coming from that ship, but it didn't look like a rescue mission. It looked like a warning. We're not alone out here, Carter muttered to himself, more to reassure himself than anyone else. We need to be careful. Whatever this is, it's not just an alien threat. There's something else at play here. But the Artemis had no choice but to approach the mysterious ship. They had to investigate the signal. There was no other option. As they moved closer to the strange vessel, the ship's dark silhouette loomed larger. The crew braced themselves for whatever lay ahead, knowing that the galaxy's greatest unknown was about to reveal itself to them. The message was clear. No one had come to their aid. And now, the crew of the Artemis was about to uncover the secrets of a universe that no one had ever dared to explore. The Artemis was alone in a hostile universe, and the galaxy had just learned how dangerous humanity truly was. The ghost ship. The Artemis shuddered as it inched closer to the massive ship that had sent the mysterious distress signal. The lights in the control room flickered, casting long shadows across the faces of the crew. Tension was thick, and the eerie silence seemed almost suffocating. No one spoke, but everyone knew. They were on the edge of something massive, something terrifying. Commander Carter stood at the helm, his hands gripping the console tightly. His eyes never left the view screen, which displayed the outline of the strange vessel. The closer they got, the more surreal it seemed. It was like nothing they had ever seen, almost ancient, its once pristine hull now battered and scarred by time. The ship's surface was covered in strange, intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. "Prepare for docking," Carter said, his voice steady but laced with concern. "We need to find out what's happening here. Juno, Sarah, get to your stations. Everyone else, prepare for possible contact." "Aye, Commander," came the unanimous response. The crew scrambled to their positions, the usual hum of activity replaced by a deep, unsettling quiet. Juno, the ship's tactical officer, was the first to speak. "There's no visible sign of life," she reported after scanning the ship's exterior. "No heat signatures, no active power readings, nothing." "That's impossible," Torres, the communications officer, muttered under her breath. "It's been sending a distress signal, so there's got to be someone, or something, on board." Carter's mind was racing, trying to make sense of it all. A ship, sent from who knows where, in the middle of nowhere, with no life signs, and no way to understand its origin. It was a puzzle, and every instinct in Carter screamed that it was a dangerous one. "Docking procedure initiated," Juno announced, her voice tense. "We're aligned." "Begin docking," Carter said, his words final, a mix of command and concern. They had come this far, and there was no turning back now. The Artemis eased forward, slowly making its way toward the docking bay of the ghost ship. The air was thick with anticipation, the crew exchanging uneasy glances as the two ships finally connected. The sound of the docking clamps locking into place echoed throughout the Artemis. Silence fell over the control room. Carter took a deep breath and turned to the crew. "Suit up. Prepare for boarding. Stay alert. We don't know what we'll find in there." Everyone nodded, donning their space suits with quick, practiced movements. The atmosphere was heavy, and even the familiar weight of their suits didn't feel comforting. There was a palpable sense of dread in the air. No one knew what awaited them on that ship, but all of them knew this would not be a routine boarding mission. The crew moved swiftly and silently to the airlock. The heavy clank of boots against the metal floor echoed in the narrow corridors as they made their way to the docking hatch. The moment the doors opened, a cold blast of stale air greeted them, making everyone shiver. The hallway beyond was dark, lit only by dim, flickering lights. The walls were lined with strange, alien symbols that none of the crew could recognize. The air felt heavy, as if the ship itself was holding its breath. A faint hum reverberated through the ship, like the sound of something old and tired, barely clinging to life. "Let's move," Carter commanded, his voice low but firm. He led the way, his eyes scanning every inch of the corridor. The crew followed closely behind, their weapons ready but their fingers twitching nervously around the triggers. They walked deeper into the ship, the eerie silence pressing in on them from all sides. There were no signs of life, no bodies, no crew, nothing. Yet the ship was clearly inhabited at one point. The evidence of human-like presence was everywhere, from broken equipment to old crew logs that were still scattered around. The deeper they ventured, the stranger it became. The symbols on the walls seemed to shift when they weren't looking directly at them. The lights flickered more often, casting long shadows that danced unnaturally. It felt like they were being watched, but there was no one there. As they reached the ship's central chamber, the temperature dropped. Frost had formed on the walls, even though the outside of the ship was still warm from their docking. The eerie hum grew louder, as if the ship was reacting to their presence. In the middle of the chamber stood a large round device. Its design was like nothing the crew had ever seen before. It was powered down, but the energy emanating from it was still detectable. A strange, pulsing light flickered from its core. "What is this thing?" Juno asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know," Carter replied. His eyes narrowed. "But it's not just a simple distress beacon. There's something here we're not understanding." Suddenly, a soft noise echoed from the far side of the chamber. It was faint, almost like a whisper, but it made the hairs on the back of their necks stand up. Everyone froze. "Did you hear that?" Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "I did," Carter replied, gripping his weapon tighter. "Stay close." The whisper grew louder, turning into a low hum, then a voice. It was unintelligible at first, but the voice grew clearer. It spoke in a language none of them could understand, yet it sent chills down their spines. Something was very wrong with this ship, and they had no idea who or what was on the other side of the chamber. The team moved cautiously toward the sound. As they stepped into the shadows, a cold gust of wind swept through the room, and the ship seemed to groan. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness. It was human. Sort of. Their body was covered in strange markings, and their eyes glowed with an unnatural light. Before anyone could react, the figure spoke again. But this time, it was clear. You should not have come here. The unthinkable choice. The stars above the human fleet flickered like distant fires, their light weak against the vast emptiness of space. As the human battleships moved deeper into alien territory, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. No one had expected this, not from a species so often dismissed as weak and primitive. But now, the story of humanity was unfolding in ways no one could have imagined. The word had spread quickly. The humans had come. They weren't here to negotiate, to trade, or even to ask for help. They were here for one reason: revenge. The galaxy was in a state of unease. Planets that had long lived in peace, safe in the belief that they were the top powers in the galaxy, were now questioning their safety. The human fleet had arrived, and the consequences of their arrival were still unknown. At the heart of the fleet, Admiral Carter stood aboard the command ship, his eyes fixed on the large holoscreen in front of him. A map of the galaxy stretched across the screen, with each alien system marked in bright colors. Some of those colors were the same as the flags of the galaxies that had harmed Earth. Others were muted, still undecided, caught in the balance between neutrality and alliances that could tip at any moment. "We can't hesitate any longer," Carter said, his voice steady, but filled with the weight of the decision he was about to make. The room behind him was silent, all eyes on him. "The galaxy may have forgotten what humans are capable of, but we won't let them forget again." The fleet was ready. Every battleship, every cruiser, and every fighter had been prepared for this moment. The weapons were loaded, the engines primed, and the crew had one mission: to make sure the galaxy understood the price of underestimating humanity. A young officer, Lieutenant Holden, stepped forward hesitantly. "Sir, the alien fleets are gathering. If we make our move now, there's no turning back." Carter turned to face him. He had been in the military for decades, his career built on making tough decisions, but this was different. This wasn't just about military strategy, it was about the future of humanity. "We don't have a choice," Carter said, his voice hard. "We've already waited too long. The galaxy needs to see what happens when they push us too far." Holden hesitated but nodded. He understood the gravity of what was happening. There was no turning back now. The tension in the room grew as the time approached. The crew knew that this moment would echo across the galaxy for centuries to come. The human fleet had come to claim its place among the stars, and they were ready to show the galaxy that humanity would never be anyone's prey again. As the first wave of human ships moved into position, Admiral Carter gave the final order: "Execute the plan." With that, the battleships began to move, their engines roaring as they sliced through the stars. The galaxy had underestimated them once before, but now they would understand. They would learn that when humanity came to fight, they fought with everything they had. And the galaxy would never forget the day the humans arrived, bringing with them the force of an unstoppable storm. The sky above Earth had once been clear, the stars shining like a blanket of light over the planet below. But that night, it was different. Dark shadows moved across the sky, covering the Earth in an unnatural blackness. The first sign of the coming storm was a distant hum in the atmosphere, so low that no one had heard it until it was too late. At first, it was just a few ships, huge, metallic beasts that moved faster than anything human technology could have imagined. No one knew who they were or where they came from. They appeared out of nowhere, emerging from deep space, silent as death itself. The world's leaders were quick to respond, thinking they could handle whatever threat had arrived. But they were wrong. The alien fleet did not ask for peace. They did not communicate. They attacked. With a single wave of energy, entire cities were erased from the map. The military scrambled, sending fighter jets and defense systems into the sky. But it was hopeless. Their weapons could not reach the invaders' ships, which hovered high above, immune to every defense Earth could throw at them. Humanity's last hope was crumbling, and no one knew what to do. The first city to fall was New York. The shining beacon of Earth, home to millions, was nothing more than a pile of rubble in minutes. People screamed as they ran through the streets, hoping for safety, but there was no escape. The sky above them lit up with flashes of light, each one bringing death closer. In an instant, buildings collapsed. The streets were flooded with dust and debris, and the people of Earth could do nothing but watch as their home was destroyed. Governments tried to organize a response, but there was no time. The aliens were too fast. Cities all over the world fell like dominoes, their lights flickering and dying in the darkness. The military launched counterattacks, but every missile, every laser blast, was deflected like it was nothing. Earth's defenses, so proud and powerful just days before, were nothing more than toys in the hands of these invaders. Panic spread across the world as the enemy showed no mercy. Communication lines were cut, and people turned on each other in desperation. The fear was palpable. Everyone knew that Earth had no chance. No one could save them now. And then the final blow came. The aliens unleashed their most powerful weapon, a massive beam of energy that cut through the atmosphere and struck Earth's surface with the force of 1,000 explosions. The ground shook, and the oceans roared as they were thrown into chaos. The impact was felt all over the planet, from the highest mountains to the deepest oceans. It was as though the Earth itself had been struck by a force so powerful that it was tearing apart at the seams. The world's last defenders fought with everything they had. They launched every missile, every ship, every fighter. They threw everything into the sky, hoping for a miracle. But it was too late. The beam from the alien weapon tore through Earth's defenses like they were paper. One by one, the cities fell. The lights that once dotted the planet's surface went dark, leaving nothing but the eerie silence of death in their place. As the world burned, humanity's last leaders made one final call for help. They'd broadcast a message into space, hoping against hope that someone, anyone, could hear them. But the message was swallowed by the void. Earth's fate was sealed. There was no coming back from this. But even as Earth fell, something strange began to happen. Across the galaxy, humanity's colonies, far from the destruction, were receiving word of the catastrophe. At first, they could not believe it. The destruction of Earth was too much to comprehend. But then they saw the signs. A distant, burning planet, the remnants of a once thriving world now reduced to rubble. They knew something had to be done. The colonies had always been prepared for an emergency, but no one had expected this. They had watched Earth with a mixture of pride and worry, knowing their home was vulnerable. The loss of Earth was devastating, but it was also the spark that would ignite something greater. The colonies, once divided, began to unite. They realized that Earth's fate was their own fate. It was time to fight back. But the aliens had made one critical mistake. They had underestimated humanity. They thought that destroying Earth would destroy the will of the human race. But they were wrong. Humanity would rise again. The colonies would stand united, and they would take revenge. Earth may have fallen, but humanity was far from done. The final images of Earth, burning in the distance, were a symbol of the rage that would fuel the coming war. And as the colonies began to prepare for battle, they all knew one thing. The aliens had awakened something far worse than they could imagine. Humanity's fury had been unleashed. This was only the beginning. The destruction of Earth had sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Its once thriving cities now lay in ruins, and the skies, which had once been clear and full of life, were now silent. But from the ashes of Earth's demise, something unexpected was brewing. The colonies, scattered across the galaxy, began to stir. They watched, mourned, and then they acted. The leaders of the colonies gathered, not as separate worlds, but as one. The message was clear. Earth was gone, but humanity had not been defeated. It had only been pushed to the edge, and now the real battle was about to begin. Among the colonies, there were groups that had never agreed on much. Some were peaceful, others were aggressive. Some had advanced technology, while others were still in their infancy. But Earth's fall had done something that no argument could accomplish. It brought them together. The first meeting of the human colonies was held on a remote station, far from the conflict. It was an old spaceport, one that had been abandoned long ago. Its halls were dark, and the rooms echoing with the sounds of feet walking across dust-covered floors. But now those halls were filled with the voices of humanity's best and brightest, leaders who had once thought their worlds too different to unite. Now, they stood shoulder to shoulder, united by a common enemy. "What do we do now?" asked General Kira Firth, leader of the Andromeda colony. She was a seasoned military strategist, and she had been one of the first to receive word of Earth's destruction. The loss hit her hard. Earth had always been the cradle of humanity. To lose it was a blow that no one had prepared for. "We fight back," replied Marcus Holt, the leader of the Titan colony, a world known for its brutal warriors and harsh environment. "We were born from Earth. Its blood runs in our veins. If we stand by and do nothing, we dishonor their memory." The room fell silent. Everyone knew the truth. Earth had always been the symbol of humanity's unity, the heart of the human race. Now it was gone. And yet, the fight for survival had only just begun. "We don't just fight for revenge," said Lyra Wren, a scientist from the Europa colony. She adjusted her glasses and stood from her seat. "We fight to make sure Earth's legacy lives on, for the future of all humanity, for the children we still have, and the generations to come." Her words hit home. The colonies were not fighting to avenge the fallen. They were fighting to ensure humanity's future, and in that future, Earth would always be remembered as the birthplace of their kind. The aliens may have destroyed Earth, but they had awakened a power that none of them could have foreseen. With a unified voice, the colonies made a pledge. The enemy would not go unpunished. The aliens had made a grave mistake by attacking Earth, and they would soon learn the cost of underestimating humanity. The colonies would not only survive, they would thrive, and they would make sure Earth's legacy was carried forward. As the meeting drew to a close, plans were made. Ships were mobilized. Technology that had been hidden for years was brought out of the shadows. The colonies knew they were no match for the invaders alone, but together they would be unstoppable. They began to form alliances with neighboring species, offering them technology and protection in exchange for support. It was a risky move. The aliens had no shortage of allies, but the colonies were prepared to do whatever it took. Every colony, every individual, was now part of a larger, more dangerous force. The fight would not be easy, and there were sure to be losses, but the human race was finally united. In the quiet moments after the meeting, Marcus stood by a large window, staring out at the endless void of space. He couldn't help but think of Earth. The memories of that place, his home, were still fresh in his mind. He remembered the trees, the oceans, the mountains. Earth had been a world full of beauty, life, and potential, but it was gone now. And the fire that burned inside of him would not let it be forgotten. "The first strike will be ours," he muttered under his breath. His hand clenched into a fist. "We will make them regret ever laying a hand on our home." As the colonies began to prepare for the war ahead, the galaxy watched. The humans, once divided and scattered, were now united by something greater than fear. The aliens had destroyed Earth, but they had unknowingly created something far more dangerous. A united humanity, driven by vengeance, and a burning desire to protect its future. The first battle was coming, and it would set the tone for the entire war. The silence in the command center was deafening. Every colony's fleet had gathered, and the vast expanse of ships, each one representing the survival of humanity's spirit, hovered in the cold vacuum of space. It was a moment that none of the leaders would forget, one where they were not simply fighting for survival, but for the future of all humans scattered across the galaxy. General Kira Firth stood at the front of the room, her eyes fixed on the holographic map that hovered in the air. It showed the trajectory of enemy ships moving through the galactic sector, unaware that humanity had united. The target was clear, a major alien fleet that had been responsible for Earth's destruction. "Their fleet is moving towards the outer rim," she said, her voice steady, but with an undercurrent of anticipation. "We strike now, before they realize we're coming." Marcus Holt, standing next to her, folded his arms. "We don't have the luxury of making mistakes. If we fail, it will be a massacre. Are we ready?" "We've prepared for this moment," Lyra Wren, the scientist, said from a nearby station, adjusting the data on her console. "The weapons we've developed, combined with our advanced strategies, are our best shot at hitting them where it hurts." The others nodded in agreement, and for the first time, it seemed as though the scattered colonies were working as a single, cohesive unit. The tensions of the past, political divides, rivalries, and distrust, had been set aside. The death of Earth had created an alliance stronger than any military force the galaxy had seen before. "Let's do this," Kira said, her voice unwavering. The fleets were ready. Each ship was a symbol of humanity's resilience, each soldier, pilot, and scientist a testament to the strength of those who refused to be crushed under the weight of loss. The crews had trained tirelessly for this moment, knowing that failure meant more than just a military defeat. It meant the extinction of humanity. As the orders were given, the fleet moved into position. The ships flew through the void, their engines lighting up the dark sky with bursts of brilliant blue and red. It was a coordinated strike, calculated with precision. Every fleet was positioned to hit the alien armada from every possible angle, ensuring that the aliens wouldn't see them coming. The first attack came without warning. A sudden, massive explosion lit up the dark expanse of space as human weapons fired in unison. The alien ships, caught off guard, began to break formation, scrambling to respond to the attack. But it was too late. The colonies had prepared for this day, and the precision of their assault was unlike anything the aliens had expected. Human ingenuity was now their greatest weapon. "Direct hit on their command ship," one of the officers reported from a nearby station. The mood in the command center shifted. The alien fleet was reeling from the surprise attack. Humanity had struck first, and for once, the tide was turning in their favor. The initial blow had been a success, but Kira knew it was just the beginning. This was only the first phase of the plan. The war was far from over. "They won't take this lightly," Marcus said, his voice grim. "We've drawn their attention. They'll retaliate with everything they have." Kira nodded. "That's why we need to hit them again before they can regroup. We can't let them have time to recover." And so, the human fleet pressed forward, their assault unyielding. The battle raged on, each blow from the colonies bringing a mixture of triumph and fear. The galaxy's fate hung in the balance as humanity's forces pushed further into alien territory. But with every victory, they knew they were proving the simple truth to the universe: humanity would not be wiped out. The aliens had underestimated the strength of a united humanity. They had thought Earth's destruction would be the end of their species, but it had only ignited a fire stronger than any force the aliens could reckon with. As the battle continued, the human fleets began to advance deeper into enemy lines. The sounds of battle echoed throughout their command centers, the hum of energy weapons, the roar of missile launches, and the cries of triumph and defeat mixed together in the air. The war was becoming a clash of civilizations, each side fighting not just for control of space, but for the survival of their way of life. The first strike had been successful, but the hardest battles were still ahead. The aliens, now fully aware of the threat humanity posed, would come at them with everything they had. And the human colonies, fueled by the memory of Earth's destruction, would meet that challenge head-on. "This is just the beginning," Kira said to her crew, her voice full of determination. "We will take back what was stolen from us." With that, the human fleets moved forward, their spirits unbroken, their mission clear. The war had begun in earnest, and humanity was ready. The aftermath of the first strike had sent shockwaves through both human and alien ranks. The alien fleet, though shaken, quickly regrouped and began retaliating with fierce resolve. The brief moments of victory for humanity were quickly overshadowed by the sheer scale of what was to come. The enemies they faced were ruthless, and now they had seen the power of a united human force. The question was no longer whether humanity would survive. It was how much they were willing to sacrifice to secure that survival. General Kira Firth stood before the strategic map, watching as enemy movements unfolded in real time. Every decision she made now carried immense weight. Her fingers hovered over the holographic controls, eyes scanning the map for weaknesses in the alien formation. Every shift in the galaxy, every new piece of intelligence from the battlefield, demanded immediate attention. Time was a luxury they no longer had. "We've hit them hard, but they're not backing down," Kira muttered, more to herself than to anyone else in the room. Marcus Holt, standing beside her, clenched his jaw. He knew the coming battles would push their forces to the brink. "We need more than just this first strike. They're coming for us, and we can't afford to be complacent." Behind them, Lyra Wren, the scientist who had helped develop the new human weapons, analyzed the incoming data. "They've restructured their forces. This is going to be harder than we thought. We can't rely on surprise anymore. They'll anticipate our next move." The tension in the room was palpable. The first victory had been a resounding success, but it was clear that the aliens had not underestimated humanity's potential. They had only momentarily faltered, but now they were adapting. The fight was about to escalate in ways the colonies hadn't fully prepared for. "Then it's time we adapt, too," Kira said, turning to face her crew with determination. "We have to hit them where it hurts. Harder. We can't afford to wait for them to regroup. We strike again, this time with everything we've got." The plan was set into motion immediately. Humanity's forces began to position themselves for the next major offensive, preparing to take on an even larger alien fleet. The colonies were no longer fighting just for survival. They were fighting for their place in the galaxy, and for the memory of Earth that still burned in their hearts. As the human fleets prepared for battle, Kira couldn't help but think back to Earth, the planet that had given birth to the very people, now fighting in the farthest reaches of space. The devastation of Earth had been the ultimate catalyst for this war, but now, the question was whether they could truly reclaim what had been lost. Would the alien forces fall to humanity's resolve, or would they crush them underfoot, just as they had done to Earth? The suspense was mounting as the fleets readied their weapons. Human resolve was tested at every turn. In the distance, the alien ships began to take formation, their weapons primed and ready. The galaxy was about to witness a battle unlike any other. Lyra's voice broke the silence. "General, we've detected an anomaly in the alien fleet's rear. Something's not right." Kira's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "There's a weakness," Lyra confirmed, "and we can exploit it. But we'll need to move fast. If we delay, they'll close the gap." Kira's mind raced. This could be their chance to deliver a decisive blow. "Then we move now. No second guessing. If we hesitate, we lose everything." The tension in the command center was thick. The fleets began to advance, each ship locking into position. The first barrage of energy weapons lit up the dark expanse of space as humanity's fleets fired upon the alien forces. The battle raged as missiles exploded in the vacuum of space, their fiery trails illuminating the abyss. The aliens had regrouped, but the human attack was swift and precise, catching them off guard. The plan was working. Humanity was pushing forward, taking advantage of every opening, no matter how small. But even as the human forces surged forward, there was a growing sense of unease. The battle wasn't over. The alien retaliation would be fierce. "They're counterattacking," Marcus warned, as the enemy ships began to close the gap, their weapons unleashing a barrage of firepower. Kira tightened her grip on the console. We can't stop now. We fight until the end. For Earth, and for every colony that's with us. The war had only just begun. The galaxy was about to witness the true power of a united humanity. Would it be enough to overcome the alien threat, or would the tides of war prove to be more than humanity could handle? The fate of humanity hung in the balance as the battle raged on, the stakes higher than ever before. The true test of their strength was yet to come, and the suspense was unbearable. The battle raged on, echoing through the vast emptiness of space. Humanity had made progress, but the enemy was relentless. The alien fleets, initially caught off guard by humanity's swift retaliation, had quickly adapted. Now they were pushing back, unleashing waves of firepower that shook the very fabric of human resolve. Kira Firth stood at the center of the war room, watching as the holographic map flickered with flashing red lights. The enemy had regrouped, their forces more organized and aggressive than before. Humanity's advantage had been fleeting, and the battle for the galaxy seemed to grow more hopeless by the hour. We need a new plan, Kira muttered under her breath, running her fingers through her hair in frustration. This isn't working. Marcus Holt, standing beside her, stared at the map, his eyes narrowing. It's not over yet. We've held our ground, and we're still in the fight. We just need to think bigger. They've thrown everything they have at us, but they've yet to face humanity's true strength. His words were bold, but Kira could sense the unease in his voice. The alien forces were relentless, and even the colonies united in their fury could not match the scale of the oncoming tide. Still, she knew they had something the aliens did not: human ingenuity. The ability to adapt, to surprise, and to turn the tide at the most unexpected moments. Lyra Wren, the scientist who had been working tirelessly on their advanced weapons, stepped forward, her face illuminated by the glow of the screens. General, we've analyzed their attack patterns. They've become predictable, but there's something more. A weakness we can exploit, something we didn't see before. Kira's eyes locked onto Lyra's, her heart quickening. What do you mean? Lyra tapped a few commands into the console, pulling up a series of images. We've been looking at their fleet structure. There's a central command ship, almost like the heart of their entire fleet. If we can destroy it, the entire fleet will lose coordination. We'll have a chance to crush them once and for all. A collective breath seemed to hang in the room. This was it, the chance humanity had been waiting for. But it wasn't going to be easy. The alien command ship was well guarded, surrounded by layers of defense that would make it nearly impossible to approach without heavy casualties. Do we have the firepower to take it down? Marcus asked, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. Lyra's fingers danced over the console, pulling up data that made the entire room tense. We're not sure, but we can try. We'll need every ship, every weapon, and every pilot at their absolute best. If we fail, there may be no coming back. Kira took a deep breath, her mind racing. The weight of the decision felt like a heavy stone in her chest. This was their best shot at ending the war, but it was also a dangerous gamble. One wrong move, and humanity could face total annihilation. But there was no turning back now. Then we go for it, Kira said, her voice resolute. We'll take down their command ship, or we'll die trying. The room fell silent as the team absorbed her words. Everyone knew the risks, but they also knew that this was the moment that could decide the fate of the galaxy. There was no room for hesitation. Lyra's voice cut through the tension. General, we have a window. The alien fleet has positioned itself into a tight formation. This is our chance. If we strike now, we have a chance of taking out the command ship before they can react. Kira nodded sharply. Then we strike. All forces, move out. Prepare for the hardest battle of our lives. This is it. For Earth. For the colonies. For the future. As the fleet prepared for the boldest attack humanity had ever launched, The tension in the command room was unbearable. This would either be the moment they crushed the alien forces or the moment humanity's hope was extinguished forever. The war was at a turning point, and every decision would now carry unimaginable consequences. Kira's pulse quickened as the countdown began. The silence in the command room was broken only by the faint hum of machinery and the soft whispers of communication between the fleet's pilots. Kira Firth stood before the large holographic display, her hands clenched into fists, staring at the coordinates of the alien command ship. They were so close now, but with every passing second, the danger grew. All ships, report in. Kira's voice rang out, clear and steady despite the chaos, unfolding outside the walls of the fleet's command center. One by one, the pilots confirmed their readiness, each voice sounding determined, yet shadowed with the weight of the impending mission. The alien command ship loomed large in the distance, heavily shielded and surrounded by swarms of enemy fighters. The closer they got, the more vulnerable they became. Lyra Wren stood nearby, her hands nervously tapping against her console as she analyzed the latest data. General, the alien fleet is shifting positions. They're anticipating our attack. If we don't act soon, we'll lose our window. Kira's heart raced. How much time do we have? Lyra hesitated. Maybe 5 minutes. 10 at most. The urgency was impossible to ignore. Kira turned toward Marcus Holt, who had been studying the screen, his jaw set in a grim line. "Are we ready for this?" she asked him, though the question was almost rhetorical. They had no choice but to be ready. He gave a sharp nod. "We've trained for this moment. The pilots know their roles, and we've equipped every ship with the best weapons we've got. If we hit the command ship with everything we've got, we'll cripple their fleet." But Kira knew better than anyone that a direct assault would come at a great cost. The alien forces weren't just going to stand by and let them attack. Their defenses were formidable, their technology far superior to humanity's. The question wasn't whether they could hit the target. It was whether they could survive long enough to make the shot count. "Prepare to launch all fighters," Kira commanded. "Hold nothing back. If we don't end this now, there won't be anything left to save." The pilots took their positions, their ships now in formation, each one a powerful tool of destruction, carrying humanity's final hopes. They were all about to enter a battle that would echo throughout the galaxy, but they had no idea what awaited them. As the ships accelerated toward the heart of the alien fleet, Kira watched the screen. She could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to cut through. The glowing mass of alien ships ahead looked like a wall, but it was a wall that had to be torn down. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." Kira shouted, her heart pounding as the fleet surged forward. The initial strike came from the outer rings of the formation, as the human ships opened fire on the first line of alien fighters. Explosions lit up the black void of space, creating a kaleidoscope of destruction. But the aliens were fast, too fast, and their counterattack came almost immediately, sending several human ships spiraling out of control. Marcus's voice crackled through the comms. "General, we're taking heavy losses. They're overwhelming us." Kira's heart sank, but she kept her focus. "Stay on course. We're not backing down now. Push forward." The human fleet pressed on, dodging incoming blasts while returning fire with every ounce of power they had. The explosions were deafening, lighting up the dark expanse of space as fighters weaved in and out of the chaos, their sleek forms cutting through the darkness. But nothing compared to what lay ahead, the alien command ship. It stood like a fortress, its shields glowing a deep violet, impenetrable to their most powerful weapons. The human forces had nothing in their arsenal that could breach it head-on. But they didn't need to. What they needed was precision, a single deadly strike that would break. Kira's hands gripped the edge of her console, her eyes never leaving the command ship. "We're almost there. Hold steady." Another volley of human fire erupted into the alien shields, and this time it had the desired effect. The shields flickered, sparking as the concentrated energy of the human fleet began to break through. "Now," Kira shouted, her voice carrying across the comms. "Target the reactor. Hit it with everything." In an instant, the remaining human ships locked on, unleashing a final barrage. The energy from their weapons focused into a single devastating strike aimed directly at the alien command ship's core. The impact was cataclysmic. A blinding flash of light engulfed the area as the alien command ship's shields collapsed, and the energy from the reactor ignited in a violent explosion. The shockwave tore through the enemy fleet, sending ships careening in all directions, their systems failing as the heart of their command structure was destroyed. But the cost had been great. Humanity's fleet had lost dozens of ships in the effort, their crews giving their lives to ensure the mission succeeded. The battlefield was silent for a moment, the aftermath of destruction hanging in the air like smoke. Kira's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the devastation unfold before her. They had done it. They had crippled the enemy. But the war wasn't over yet. There was still much to do, still much to fight for. The stakes had never been higher, and the galaxy's future hung in the balance. In the silence that followed the cataclysmic explosion, the human fleet remained in orbit, motionless for a brief, uncertain moment. The wreckage of the alien command ship drifted in space, its shattered remains floating like the remnants of a fallen giant. Kira Firth stared at the scene before her, feeling the weight of their victory, but also the weight of the immense losses they had suffered to achieve it. "Status report," Kira ordered, her voice calm but strained. Lyra Wren's voice crackled through the comms, tinged with both exhaustion and hope. "We've taken down their command ship, General. The enemy fleet is disoriented. Many of their ships are retreating, but some are still holding their ground." Kira looked at the shattered remains of the alien flagship. It had been their greatest weapon, and now it was no more. But the war wasn't won yet. The alien forces still outnumbered them, and there were still thousands of ships that remained in orbit, some on the verge of retreat, others preparing for a final, desperate strike. "Prepare for a final assault," Kira said, her voice firm and resolute. "We can't let them regroup. We finish this now." The human fleet, battered but not broken, turned its remaining fighters and ships toward the heart of the enemy armada. The pilots, though fatigued from the intense battle, were motivated by a shared sense of purpose. They knew what was at stake. If the alien forces managed to regroup, humanity's fragile hold on the galaxy could crumble. Marcus Holt's voice came through, steady but with a sense of urgency. "We've got a new problem, General. The aliens are initiating the self-destruct sequence on their remaining ships. If we don't act quickly, they'll take us all down with them." Kira's mind raced. "Get the fleet in position. We have to disable the remaining ships before they can activate their warheads." The tension in the command center reached a new peak as the fleet moved into position, dodging incoming fire while staying in sync to approach the alien ships from multiple angles. The self-destruct sequence would detonate not only their ships, but also trigger a chain reaction that could wipe out entire colonies, leaving humanity vulnerable. Lyra worked frantically on her console, sweat beading on her forehead. "We've identified the ships with the self-destruct systems, General. We can target their energy cores and disable the triggers." "Then do it," Kira ordered. "This is the final push, all or nothing." The fleet surged forward, each fighter moving in perfect harmony. The alien ships, still in disarray from the earlier explosion, fought back with what little they had left. Laser beams streaked across the void, narrowly missing the human ships as they zoomed past, targeting their enemies with deadly precision. Kira's heart raced as she watched the events unfold. The enemy fleet was powerful, but humanity had proven time and time again that they were not to be underestimated. They had survived against impossible odds, and now they had one last chance to finish what they had started.